Hold up 3 fingers. Right now, without any effort, you know that's 3. You didn't count them one by one. You just saw the amount and knew it instantly. That feeling is so automatic, so obvious, that it seems like it must be as natural as breathing. But now imagine something harder. Imagine a world with no numbers at all. No word for 3. No symbol for it. No idea anywhere in your mind that could hold the concept of a specific quantity separate from actual objects. You have 10 sheep in a field, but there is no 10. There is only this sheep, and that sheep, and that one, and that one. That was the world of every human for almost our entire history. Numbers, real numbers, are shockingly recent. And yet, ancient humans absolutely needed to count. They needed to know if all their animals came home, if the group had enough food to survive the winter, if a share was fair, if everyone made it back from the hunt. So how did they do it? How do you keep track of amounts in a world that has no numbers to think with? The answer is one of the most important inventions in all of human history, and almost nobody talks about it. Because before humans could count, they had to solve a problem so deep it's hard to even see it as a problem. Let's start with what your brain can actually do on its own, with no training at all. Look at a small group of objects, 1, 2, or 3 of something, and you know the amount instantly, without counting. Scientists call this ability subitizing. It's built into you from birth. Babies have it. Some animals have it. But it collapses almost immediately. Show someone 4 objects, and they're already slower. Show them 5 or 6 scattered dots, and most people can no longer just see the number. They have to start counting. Beyond about 3 or 4, our instant number sense simply runs out. And this is the great problem ancient humans faced. Their brains, like yours, could only truly grasp about 3 or 4 things at a glance. But real life demanded more. A hunter-gatherer might be tracking a dozen people. A herder might have 30 animals. How do you hold 30 in a mind that maxes out at 4? Their first solution was hanging right at the ends of their arms. Fingers. It sounds almost too simple, but using your fingers to count is a genuine intellectual leap, and it may be the single most important one in the history of mathematics. Because when an ancient human raised 1 finger for each sheep, they were doing something profound. They were creating a match. 1 finger stands for 1 sheep, another finger, another sheep. The fingers don't look like sheep. They aren't sheep. But there are exactly as many raised fingers as there are animals. This idea has a name. It's called one-to-one correspondence, and it is the foundation of all counting that has ever existed. The deep realization that one set of things can perfectly represent another set of things. Your 10 fingers could suddenly stand in for 10 of anything in the universe: sheep, days, people, spears. And this is exactly why so many number systems around the world are built on 10 and sometimes 20. Our maths is shaped to this day by the number of fingers and toes our ancestors were born with. But fingers have an obvious limit. You run out. And worse, the moment you put your hands down, the count is gone. You can't store a number on your fingers overnight. You can't hand your fingers to someone in another valley. Ancient humans needed a way to make a count last, to freeze it in place. And so they invented one of the most powerful objects in human history. And it was almost heartbreakingly simple. They took a bone, and they cut a notch into it. 1 notch for 1 thing. This is called a tally, and it changed everything, because for the first time a number could exist outside a human body. A count could survive the night. It could be carried, stored, and checked. A notched bone doesn't get tired, doesn't forget, and doesn't die. It just holds the number, silently, for as long as the bone lasts. And some of those bones have lasted an astonishingly long time. In the Lebombo Mountains, on the border of South Africa and Eswatini, archaeologists found a small piece of baboon leg bone. Carved into it are 29 clear, deliberate notches. This object, the Lebombo bone, has been dated to somewhere around 43,000 years ago. Sit with that number. More than 40,000 years ago, before the last ice age had ended, before farming, before writing, before the cave paintings of Europe, a human being sat down and carefully carved a row of counting marks into a bone. And here is a haunting detail. 29 notches is very close to the length of a lunar month, the time from one new moon to the next. Some researchers believe it may have been used to track the cycles of the moon, which raises the tantalizing possibility that one of the very first things humans ever counted was time itself. But the most famous of all these ancient objects is even more astonishing. It's called the Ishango bone, found near the headwaters of the Nile in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and it is around 20,000 years old. On display today in Brussels, it has a sharp piece of quartz fixed to one end, likely for engraving, and it is carved with notches, but not in random rows. They are arranged in deliberate, organized groups. And when mathematicians studied those groups, they found something strange. One row contains 4 numbers that are all prime numbers between 10 and 20. Other rows show patterns of doubling and groupings clustered around 10. Now, scholars genuinely argue about whether this is real mathematics or a coincidence. But even at its most cautious interpretation, this bone shows a human mind 20,000 years ago that was not just tallying single objects, but arranging numbers into deliberate patterns. Someone was playing with quantity. Someone was thinking. Still, the tally system, for all its power, had one crushing weakness. Every mark stands for exactly one thing. 3 sheep, 3 notches. That's fine. But 300 sheep means 300 notches. 3,000 means 3,000. There's no shortcut, no shorthand, no way to write a big number quickly. As human groups grew from bands into villages and towns, with trade and property and stored grain, tallying every single item one mark at a time became impossibly slow. So, around 10,000 years ago, in the ancient Near East, someone made the next great leap. Instead of scratching a mark for each item, early farmers began shaping small clay tokens into different forms to stand for different things. A little clay cone might mean a small measure of grain. A sphere might mean a larger measure. A disc might stand for 1 sheep. Now, a single object could represent not just one thing, but a specific quantity of a specific thing. This was a huge step toward abstraction, toward the idea that a symbol can carry meaning. And this is where the whole story bends towards something enormous. Because to keep those clay tokens safe, people began sealing them inside hollow clay balls. But once the tokens were sealed inside, you couldn't see them anymore. So they started pressing the tokens into the outside of the ball first, to record what was within. And eventually, someone had the world-changing realization: if the marks on the outside tell you what's inside, you don't actually need the tokens at all. You can just make the marks. That, many researchers believe, is one of the roads that led to written numbers, and then to writing itself. Our letters, our records, our entire civilization of written language may trace back in part to the simple need to count sheep and grain. So the invention of counting was not one moment. It was a ladder, climbed over tens of thousands of years. From the instant number sense you were born with, to matching things with fingers, to freezing counts as notches in bone, to arranging those counts in patterns, to clay tokens standing for quantities, to marks that replace the tokens, and finally to true written numbers. And here is the twist that makes this whole story remarkable. We tend to think of counting as something small and mechanical, a boring skill you learn as a child. But it may be one of the most powerful things our species ever did. Because counting is really the act of abstraction itself, the ability to pull an idea, like 7, out of the messy real world and hold it in your mind as a pure concept, detached from any actual object. That single ability, born from tracking sheep and moons on carved bones, is the seed of all mathematics. And all mathematics is the seed of nearly everything else. Every building, every bridge, every machine, every line of computer code, every rocket that has ever left the Earth exists because a human being can hold a number in their mind and do something with it. And it all started with a problem. A brain that could only see up to 3 or 4, living in a world that demanded so much more. Ancient humans didn't just solve that problem, they built a ladder out of it that we are still climbing today. So the next time you glance at a group of objects and instantly know how many there are, remember that this quiet little ability is the far end of a journey that began over 40,000 years ago, with someone sitting in the dark, holding a bone, carefully cutting one notch for one thing, refusing to lose count. They had no numbers, so they invented them. And in doing so, they may have invented the mind that would one day build the world.